That's a long sigh. What the hell?
I know. Everyone's like, what's going on now? What are you doing? Good morning, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to the 10K Rum Podcast. My name is Amos Joseph, joined by my co-host, Brook Potter, who's, of course, in the UK as always. How's it going today, Brook?
It's going well, Amos. It's going well. I've actually had a pretty good day. Hit the gym this morning, got a sick fucking pump, which is always exciting. International Chest Day. Did you go to the gym for International Chest Day?
I just might have to start going again.
You might just have to start going again. It was great. It was actually good to get out. I was a little disheveled though. My mind seems to be racing a lot, so I had on all sorts of crazy shit, and I was very difficult to focus. But managed to get through it. Sorry?
I'm just kidding. I was like, what's her name?
I'll tell you that in the raw takes. But yeah, no, it was a very good day. I'm actually heading up to London this Saturday for 6 hours because as I've mentioned on the show before, I am a trustee with the Trinidad and Tobago Association UK, and they're doing a soup kitchen in Haringey in pretty much central London. I think it's 380 Green Lane. This Saturday from about 12 to 4, I believe. And it's going to be one of the few opportunities where all the trustees get to meet each other. There's going to be photos, food, and, good drinks and rum. And so I've decided to make the trek out for 5 hours this Saturday. I got to leave my house at like 6 o'clock in the morning, get to Cardiff, run across on the train to get to Paddington. And then there's probably another hour to, Manor House or whatever. So, with that said, pray for me, guys. It's going to be a long day because I come back that same night. I do that trip twice in one day to come back. So, I'm psyching myself up for that. Lots of cardio. I'm going to be carb loading. It's going to be great. How are you doing over in Minnesota?
Had a long few days here. But so far, so good. We've been getting hot the last few days.
Hot, you say?
Yes.
With 2 T's?
No, just 1 T, I'd say. But I mean, temperature-wise, we basically have been hovering around. And then for our listeners, this is in Fahrenheit, in the high 90s, even flirting with 100 a few times. Low humidity and the whole thing. I mean, for my job, I had to be out in that, and definitely had a few. It's not super hot. It's warm. Like it's fairly warm. It's hot to a degree, depending who you ask. But the big thing is the acclimating to it. I haven't
Yes.
we were literally in the 40s like 2 weeks ago, which is like, I'd say in Celsius, just below 10 degrees. And then
that's
now
like 10, 12
and then
degrees.
now we just, jump way up to where we are now. And it's like, shit, dude, like it's freaking hot out.
That's kind of what happened here too. We had a very cold spring in the beginning and then just boom, jumped up to like 20, 25 degrees Celsius.
Yeah. So had to deal with all that. And then what else is going on? Oh yeah. So for everyone who was I don't know if I mentioned this already in the show, because I had to go pick up my mom.
Yes, I saw you've been enjoying some good Thai food. But before we get into that, is there something you want to tell men who might want to do something with their balls?
Yes.
Yes.
They want to wash them.
Wash the balls. Don't fondle the balls unless you're checking for, testicular cancer.
Or if you have a woman do it for you.
Right. That's why you don't do it. You let her do it.
Yes. So if you guys, of course, do support the show, you enjoy what we're doing, want to support us, do check out tacticalsoap.com. Use the coupon code 10KRUM to get 10% off. Or go to subscribestor.com/shitload-preachers, where you can support the show directly on a monthly basis for as little as $1 a month. So, yeah. So, the big thing was going to go pick up my mom. I took off Wednesday and Thursday from work. So Wednesday I got up and um, got ready. Now here and then here's the next thing too. Wednesday I got up before I went to go pick up my brother, who was actually going with me to go pick up my mom.
Mm.
I got the shot.
Oh no.
Oh no, yeah.
Herpes?
No, Pfizer.
Right.
Um,
You actually took the vaccine.
I did. I
Right.
went in. I went into a local pharmacy, set up the appointment and everything. They got some info from me. I sat down. They gave me the shot. Um, Nothing really happened. The only thing that happened was my arm was sore,
Yeah.
and I was maybe a little bit tired for a couple days.
Okay.
That was it.
So far,
Um,
good. Well,
so
hopefully
far,
that will continue.
that was since Wednesday, so 5 days ago. Um, I even when I got home. So well, here was the series of events. So
Yes.
did that, got some food, went to go pick up my brother. Here was the thing. So we're in Minneapolis, and but with everything going on, my mom wanted to limit the amount of stops she had to take to get here. So she flew a direct flight from Taipei, to Chicago,
Mhm.
and then that was it. So we had to go all the way out to Chicago. So my brother drove there, picked her up, and then I drove back, all
Okay.
in one go. Um, Came back, so I left at I picked up my brother at 2 in the afternoon, and I got into my bed at 5 in the morning when I got back.
Nice.
Um, yeah, I remember I got back. I took a shower and everything. Slept until noon or 1 in the afternoon. Then went back to go see my mom and stuff. Spend time. We had dinner and all this stuff. So, and then I saw her again just yesterday. We had got together again and had dinner and hung out. Um, but yeah, so that was my week. Um, Nothing else really happened, I guess. I haven't grown any new limbs.
No bleeding from your vagina.
No, I've gotten back. I mean, I feel fairly fine. I mean, so after I got back from the trip and everything, I took a shower and slept a lot. My body seemed to be just fine. Like my arm is so is my right arm.
Yeah,
It was
it normally takes about 2 weeks to kind of get the first set of reactions. And if you don't get it, you could get it on the second as well. Hopefully nothing's going to happen. Hopefully you'll have a decent showing. Um,
yeah.
I'm disappointed, man. I thought you were more alpha than that, like kick Corona in its balls,
I mean, the thing was I didn't get sick the entire time of the pandemic, and
which probably means you had it and you had the immunity. So there really wasn't any need
or
for it.
that. The big thing was a lot of with what's going on here in the states, with my job. Uh, they're really cracking down. Well, first off, there is an incentive with my job to do it. You get
Mm,
paid to do it. So I thought, well, that's something. And then after it's done, you're on track to not having to wear a mask at work. And they have people
right.
that enforce that. And I'm like, and it's a physically demanding job, and I'm like, I just hate wearing these things. I mean, I already don't wear them in a lot of places that don't require it anymore.
Uh-huh.
But if I go to work, it's absolutely required. Like there's a special procedure if for people who have already been because there's been people that have been vaccinated for months
Right.
and they just go to work without a mask, and I'm just like, I just don't want to. So I mean, yes, I admit it's a little bit of that compliance factor. But I figured, being as young as I am, and with the reactions that I've seen, I'm not. The risk is still manageable, in my opinion, for me.
Well, we'll
It's not
see.
like and I'm also looking at like the big question was also for people with like who are prone to anaphylactic shock and all this stuff. People who have real bad allergies
Right.
can
That
tend
I
to
mean,
have a bad reaction.
that's one of the concerns.
Oh no, I get that too.
Well, at least you didn't go blind. You didn't go deaf.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if you're going to still produce sperm. In fact, the study going on in Japan right now is about like the spike protein ending up in the testicles and basically causing infertility. But that's an ongoing trial. Israel is doing the same thing with ovaries because they're realizing the spike protein is ending up in the ovaries and the eggs are kind of limited. But that's an ongoing trial. But again, none of these things were expected to leave the muscle tissue. It's supposed to go from the muscle tissue to the lymph node. You get the reaction, but that doesn't seem to be what's going on. The spike protein ends up all over the body. And we'll see. I mean, bro, you know me. I love you, man. I want you, safe, well, healthy. I want you to have kids. And all. For me, that was never worth the risk. The long-term effects of the unknown, as much as it might be a short-term benefit, I was never going to do that. Especially with this bunch of clowns, which is probably going to bring us into our first topic, Fauci and the World Health and CDC. They have fucked up so many of these vaccines, and they'll all say, "Oh, it's safe. It's there. Oh, yeah, it's no problem, man. Yeah, it just causes narcolepsy and brain damage and strokes and oh yeah, it doesn't matter." I wasn't going to touch it. So I mean, if you've looked at all that and you made the choice, I respect that, bro. I want you to be healthy. I want you to be safe.
Yeah, the big thing is just reaction wise. I've never had bad reactions to stuff in general. I mean, I've never had any serious allergies. I think I had like something with eggs when I was really, really young, and then that was just not a problem anymore. I never had any, anaphylaxis of any kind. No asthma, no. I'd say I was fairly fuck. I didn't even break really any bones in my body. Like just
yeah. Let me not jinx myself, but I'm pretty much the same.
Yeah. And even like, now granted, I when I found out that I was in a placebo, that was a bit disappointing. I thought, well, dang it,
I was like, dang, I thought you dodged a bullet.
Yeah. Funny thing too. So we've kind of looked. We talked about early on in the pandemic how like there's certain countries that handled it a lot more strictly and tended to limit their cases.
Mm-hmm.
Taiwan was one of those.
Yes.
So here's a weird thing that's kind of going on in Taiwan. First off, they're getting a resurgence of cases again.
It must be flu season in Taiwan.
No, it's summer.
It's because they're south of the equator, so we're in summer here.
No,
they would be cooler.
North of the equator.
Are they north of the equator? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, but I mean, how far away from the equator are they? They're kind of temperate.
It has to do with more of the ocean currents and everything, but they are. Let's see.
Are they tropical or temperate? Do they get a winter? Basically, do they get a winter?
They do, but it's more tropical than here. See, Taiwan.
Okay, so it's probably tropical season.
Let's see. I can probably look up on the map quick, but Taiwan is the big thing is just being that it's so close. Let's see. So it's if I go across. Florida.
Okay, good. Yeah, all right.
Florida, southern Texas, close
that kind of region. Yeah, okay.
Granted, you also got to consider ocean currents and such where they are, so it's a little bit different. Yeah. So Taiwan basically had a small amount of the Indian variant, the one that's a little bit deadlier, and then I think a little bit of everything else, but they were very
the Indian variant doesn't exist except in the UK because India is saying there's no such thing.
Then what's killing all these people in India then?
there isn't any major deaths in India. They're using hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, so the cases are dropping. There's a lot of cases, but not a lot of deaths. But that's it. The UK invented this Indian variant, and the Indian embassy in the UK right now are in war saying, why the fuck are you saying that? Because there is no variant. There's nothing here. But
there's a Brazilian
of course,
variant, though, right?
I'm hearing the same thing in Brazil. So the media, I think, and the governments are making it up more than anything else. We haven't isolated any versions of these things, and none of them are more deadly. At the end of the day, it could be the exact same virus that's going around, and they're just calling it different names. We really don't know. Okay. But anyway, they've got a resurgence of the virus in Taiwan.
Yeah, and it was there were a handful of people that they caught were not really respecting quarantine, and those people got in a lot of trouble. They had this guy who, what was it? My mom was giving me the story. It was really funny, actually. So there was this guy in one of the more prominent red light districts of Taiwan.
Nice. When are we going?
He caught. Well, hold on. He caught COVID. And but he was asymptomatic.
Yeah.
So he was transmitting to a lot of women. Now, he was an older guy, and this red light district is known for older women.
Okay.
I'm talking 50 plus older women.
All red light districts have, the grand.
But it was this was like, I guess,
life alert for the squirt.
Yeah. So he basically was going around, and I guess they through contact tracing and everything, they found he infected at least 100 women.
Good on him, man. Doing the Lord's work.
but he got caught, and they like interrogated him, like, okay, like you're already in trouble, this, but we really need to know where you've been. Like what you've been doing. And he was like, and this is all publicly being, disclosed. And he's just like, I don't know. Like he was almost, he's pretty embarrassed, but he was known, they gave him a nickname. They called him, so he was a Taiwanese guy, but he was like very much involved in a lot of like American organizations. Mm-hmm. So he was very like, I think he'd like spent a lot of time in the States and stuff. But here was the funny thing: the big like identifying thing about him was he was part of the Lions Club.
Oh, okay, I know Lions.
Yeah, kind of like
Lions Club and the Rotary and the Lions.
Yeah. So that was the only real like big thing about him in his life. So they called him the Lion King.
Brilliant. Fucking love it.
So they would talk about like, the Lion King is going around, infected all these people. Like they just give these nicknames.
King of the Jungle. Come on.
So, anyways, the big thing too was when my mom had come over, we picked her up, and she was a bit on edge just because over there. So here's the big thing too: is the WHO, as well as China in league with them, has prevented any sort of mainstream access to the vaccine for Taiwan.
Right.
So a lot of people in Taiwan have had to essentially get shots through private doctors, or I should say privately through doctors, or they somehow get essentially smuggled in. Like there is literally a black market for vaccines in Taiwan.
Interesting.
They have their own CDC there and everything. They've got some people who are giving vaccinations who are in there like recognizing it, like they have like a card, kind of like what we do. So this is mine right here, but there's no like mainstream thing. It's not like how they're doing it here, where it's like you can just go to like your pharmacy, your hospital, your clinic, or anywhere and just get a shot. And so and they don't know if they're going to. Like, so what had happened was like people who are maybe more well off or more well connected had to like have friends or friends of friends who would have connections. Like someone was like having a connection to certain like Chinese companies that have
Mm.
access. Some people had to like, even because Taiwan has connections with certain European countries, so they had to get like stuff from like Germany and stuff. It
Right.
was just interesting. So when they came over, they're a lot more like here. We're pretty much on that point. Like when you look at the numbers, people are kind of just moving away from really any major social distancing, mask wearing, protection, stuff like that. Over there, I saw them come off the plane. It was literally just a plane full of double masking, face shield, goggles, gloves, and those what are they? I call them hazmat, but they're basically like disposable full body suits
Oh, the
that
kind
you
of
would
paper
wear.
things that they wear,
They were
like
like
nursing
white.
gowns.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But they're like, they're basically, yeah. No, flight attendants and passengers were all wearing them.
That's crazy.
My mom just had gloves and masks. So yeah, I mean it's I don't know. I mean that's
Very
I think
compliant. Very, very compliant. I don't think you could get
I
an
think
American Airlines to do
the
that.
thing is they're no they're but their guidelines only dictate like masks from what I've read.
Yeah, so
So
they're
to
going
go
above and beyond.
yeah, I think that's beyond compliant. That's really just
Very compliant, very, very docile population out there. They're going, obviously they're scared shitless and they're trying to
I
protect
mean,
themselves.
you got to admit they went with that at first and they were back to normal in May of
Sure, but I
last
mean,
year.
they were ahead of the curve. Like they knew what was going on before the rest of the world, and they started screening people with temperature scans at the airport long before anybody else, because
Well, I know that.
they've dealt with this before. So they were able to catch it really, really early and isolate it. And as you said, very draconian measures and public shaming. So that's not a surprise. But yeah, obviously you can't contain it. Why would people go to such lengths unless they're absolutely terrified with a disease that's 99.98% recoverable? That's propaganda. That's the state is in their
True.
head.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I could see like if old people were kind of doing that, but
Sure, I
with
would respect that as well because they're higher risk.
right.
But yeah, if they're doing all
Um,
of that, that's programming. That's a well above and beyond. These people are terrified. And those are like the branch COVIDiots, those are the people who swear this thing is like Ebola. You got a 95% chance of dying, like a Democrat. That's the kind of thing that you'd be dealing with.
right, right. So yeah, I saw all that and that was interesting. Granted, also like uh, physical contact is a weird thing for Chinese people in general.
Yeah.
So like when my mom came off the plane, I kind of had to we had to kind of just wean her off of everything. Like
You shoulder,
no,
your elbow bumped her.
I straight up just went up and gave her a hug. My brother and I were wearing a mask, but I went up to her and gave her a
Good.
hug, and we're like, well, she's like, well, I'm gonna wear a mask like for 2 weeks. Why? Well, but because like it's a quarantine. Well, okay. Okay, so here's the thing. COVID doesn't transmit instantaneously. We know that for sure. It
Correct.
takes about 10, 15 minutes of continual exposure to the infected or the
Correct.
transmitting. You're going to be in a car with us for 6 hours.
Yes. It's basically like being in a household. You can't escape it.
Like there is no way you're going to like unless you are literally in a separate EV suit of some sort. You're getting it.
Yeah,
You're
bubble
getting
boy territory.
And then she's like, well, but what if you guys are carrying and you don't know it? I said, well, he's fully vaccinated and I already got my first shot. So we're fine in that case. She goes, well, but what if I said, you're literally getting your shot. And I looked at the watch. I'm like, tomorrow. You're getting the shot tomorrow. Because she wanted to get the shot too. And then you're getting it tomorrow. She got it. She's fine. She feels fine so far. And I was like, you're getting it. you're fine.
She's obviously been deeply programmed and obviously terrified of this thing.
Because I'm taking like, and I've talked to you, like I'm not going like the full fear, but I'm not going the full compliant. I'm kind of like more. Granted, I'm leaning a little bit more towards like trusting on certain things, like the effectiveness of masks and the vaccines, but not like where it's just like some people who are like literally like you either get it or you die, and it's like, well, no, it's just.
I mean, the mask thing, I mean, we could probably touch on that because Fauci's emails has debunked the mask again.
Yeah, he talked about, because I looked into it, and I guess we're moving into this topic. So what was it, like 2,000 something emails and communications were released through FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, FOIA.
Right, FOIA, yeah.
So,
yeah, we discussed this last week. So, but the mask stuff is new.
Did we? Oh,
yeah.
So, he came out.
That was the gain of function laboratory stuff that we discussed last week.
Yes, that one was really. So, gain of function had to do with like looking into, because I completely didn't know what that meant. I just heard it being thrown around a lot. I guess that has to do with like, that's talking about like
evolving viruses.
Well, yeah, experimenting with how they like what they do, because people were saying, like, I mean, the way I heard was when people talk about the lab leak, some, let's just say more fringe would say like, oh no, it's completely man-made. I'm like, I don't think
I don't think it's completely man. Yeah, we don't make.
You can, but you can. I'm saying like, yeah, if you can modify like existing viruses. I could see that.
Engineered is the preferred theory at this point.
Right. So, let's see what it is. Oh,
hey, Mictobus, thanks for joining us, bro.
So I looked into the emails and I saw the ones about the masks, and I think he said, what is it? So the masks are effective in preventing the infected from infecting others, but not necessarily affected from
getting infected,
protecting from getting infected. And I was like, oh yeah, because there was a whole thing where I remember so people were talking about like how, well, the pores in the mask are bigger than the size of the virus. Well, it's like, well, we know the virus doesn't just, like, viruses aren't just open air transmitting. There's water droplets they attach to. So it made sense. Well, if they're here, like, they're just going to attach the mask because most of the moisture is filtered in the mask.
Will be captured. Correct.
That makes sense. But then, yeah, in terms of being infected, well, you can't stop moisture from coming in, from your sinuses,
your eyes, everywhere.
Yeah, eyes, that was another whole thing too. So I was like, okay. That's all I really saw about the mask thing. It's just it prevents the infected from infecting.
So Louisville University just came out with another study based on the mask, and it basically says it's bupkis. There's no evidence to suggest that it curtails any type of infection from an infected person or from a non-infected person from getting sick.
So you really just need the N95 or better to be preventing infection.
The only thing is an N95 or better. And yeah, even that has its own problems because you can't wear that for the length of time. You could actually get like brain damage from wearing it for too long. But yes, the only thing that actually does preventative protection.
From oxygen.
Probably. Oxygen asphyxiation, yeah. So all of this mask thing, there is absolutely, for the fifth, I think this is the 16th study that's come out in this space of time. Not like they didn't study this in coronaviruses back in the 80s and we knew this. It's bupkis. There's no science. It's all
you need something to limit the spread.
Right. And it would be an N95 mask.
No, I get that.
With goggles.
No, I get that. But even an N95 mask without goggles, there is a demonstrable effectiveness to it.
With the N95, yeah, probably. But I mean, is that really... See, this is what ended up happening when you went through Fauci's emails. It became very clear. Well, first of all, the whole cover-up with the gain of function. But we discussed that last week. You don't have to go over that. But there's a huge gap in the research and the conversation. There is absolutely no discussion of therapeutics. Absolutely no discussion.
Yeah, that's because that was a big. I'd say out of everything, really, that no one was really touching on. Like people want to debate the masks. People want to talk about vaccines. Well, vaccines weren't even a conversation back then, really.
No, it was. It was testing and vaccines. Those were the only things he was discussing.
Yeah, but there was no therapeutics because I remember.
No, it's worse than that. It's worse than that he didn't mention it. They actively campaigned against the therapeutics. So when the
hydroxychloroquine
and ivermectin, yeah, there was another, and I think with vitamins, with zinc or something like that. But they did a study with elderly people. They did 500 elderly people, late stage COVID, and they basically overdosed them on the COVID. And that was their study. Like, okay, if you take hydroxychloroquine, you're going to die. But that's not how you apply the hydroxychloroquine. You got to catch it early. It's almost 80 to 90% effective when it's done early. But they fraudulently put out this study, like intentionally tried to diminish any kind of therapeutics. And that's what's very disturbing, which is why I don't trust these people as far as you can throw them. When you go to the doctor and you have a cold, they don't jump to the surgery, right? They make sure you're getting vitamin C. They make sure you're not lacking sleep, have some chicken soup. And if it doesn't, improve, then you go on to antibiotics maybe or whatever. But the fact that they completely not only ignored it, but campaigned against it is very nefarious. Very, very nefarious. Millions of lives were lost because of these fraudulent peer-reviewed studies that they faked about hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. And that 3 million people supposedly died in the US because of that. That is nefarious.
I don't think 3 million have died in the US from COVID.
No, maybe it's 3 million in the world or something. I saw the 3 million number somewhere.
Like 5 or 6 million in the world. I think the US is somewhere around 500,000 or 600,000
have died.
Okay. Cases were in the millions.
Okay. Cases,
but of course, we don't know about. Of course, we don't know about China because they're just
exactly, because they're lying through their asses. China is notorious for doing, but that's very concerning, though. It almost seems like, and you're seeing it even in the conversation out here in the UK. So we have one of the most advanced vaccination programs in the world. And I think 60 to 70% of our population has been vaccinated. In fact, they want to prove this shit for children and children 5 to 12 and all this sort of thing. But there's no discussion about people who already been infected and have antibodies who are probably not susceptible. There's no discussion about hydroxychloroquine or therapeutics or any of these different types of things. That if the goal is really to save lives, that's what you got to say. If the goal is really to save lives, why was this excluded from the conversation?
The big thing, too, was the first 2 months that COVID was in the U.S., the CDC pretty much told doctors to not do much with it.
Correct.
So it was essentially given a 2-month head start to spread before
doctors could really. Correct.
Yeah, before the doctors could really step in, do any sort of in-depth sort of studying it, diagnosing it, seeing if there's any way of relieving symptoms, really, in general. But
it doesn't mean that the local doctors did not try therapeutics, which is where you discovered the hydroxychloroquine.
And I think that's where they kind of leverage that against doctors who were like, well, we told you couldn't, and then you tried. So, I mean, you're going against what we told you to do, so fuck you. You can't do this.
Yeah. So was it American?
They don't like that they can't take credit for doctors taking that risk, figuring out what's going on.
Correct. No, it's not only that, it's that they want a vaccine. Because there was never a discussion about therapeutics. In fact, they actively fought against therapeutics and came up with this bogus study. The Lancet had to retract it. So they went out of their way to imply that there was no treatment, which was a flat out lie. And all they were concerned about was the vaccine. And again, I'm very dubious of these characters who are playing in this game because they're obviously not really trying to look out for the health of people. Even in the UK, we have the same problem. There's no discussion about therapeutics. There's no discussion about people who've already been infected. They're looking to give this to kids. And again, we have no long-term safety information on any of this stuff. So it's very, very nefarious. And for me, I think a lot of people are kind of looking at it like, this needs to slow down. This is actually quite dangerous what they're doing.
Right now, let's see, the country has already had over 1/3 of the US that right now has already gotten both doses, or at least they're fully, what they're considering fully vaccinated. And I think around 50% have already gotten the first shot. So, and then of course
that's more than herd immunity. That should be fine. You guys are fine.
At this point, I'm
if
thinking
the vaccine works.
At this point, I'm looking at it at like, well, I mean, things are already where they are, because most of the state right now, so Minnesota, most of the state is already pretty much opened up.
Good.
Like I was getting messages from work and such that said like, yep, if you got the shots and everything, like here, we'll give you this, we'll give you that, like you're back to normal. But just keep in mind, if you're ever doing any work in St. Paul, randomly, St. Paul just decided, yeah, we don't care if you're even vaccinated, you still got to wear a mask. There's still so the state is pretty much done with enforcing anything. Federally, there's obviously nothing. So really, it's just coming out of cities, and I think St. Paul is like the last place that's just really pushing anything.
Well, I mean, St. Paul is run by COVIDiots, right? It's leftists who basically think this thing is Ebola. They've been very draconian, haven't they?
It depends on how you look at that. I don't know too much about St. Paul. You only really hear about Minneapolis.
Okay, yeah, it's the Twin Cities.
It's weird. Like St. Paul is the old city, while Minneapolis is kind of like what everyone really cares about. It's weird. Like they're literally about 10 minutes apart by freeway, but
I mean, eventually they'll merge into one as they grow. It's kind of like
this
black holes swallowing each other.
the sprawl, the urban sprawl, it definitely connects the two.
Yeah, of course.
But it's just they're also very separate in terms of like culture and what they do and everything. Like, you go to St. Paul if you want to like see sights and you want to kind of go for a walk and stuff. You go to Minneapolis if you want to get shot.
Or see the rioting up close.
Yeah. Interesting enough, was it last week? Probably last week. Last week, bulldozers went through the George Floyd Memorial.
Yeah, they cleared it out, I think in the middle of the night or something like that.
No, during the day.
Oh, they did it in the day. Okay.
I saw pictures. It was like daylight, and I was like, "Wow." I mean, as far as I know, they didn't like. From what I saw, they didn't like destroy. They just took it down. So they're moving it off. Like
there were like a couple barricades and some funky artwork and some spray painting and stuff. But they just cleared the road basically.
So basically there was the fist that was in the middle of the. They moved that off to the side. They removed all the barricades. They kind of just cleared it out because what's going on, what has been going on is while there is traffic going there and there are people that are going to the memorial, a lot of the businesses in that block
couldn't function, and they kept getting wrong,
including the business that George Floyd went to.
Yes,
just with all the stimulus, with all the help that they were trying to get there, it doesn't like do anything. Like $27 million given to the George Floyd Autonomous Zone. As far as I know, not much, if any, went to any of the businesses. It's for relief.
I've heard similar things.
It was just to the people involved with that project.
Yeah.
Which is really what it became. Like, I've looked at a lot of this. I mean, I talked to some like friends who are conservatives. The big thing right now that people aren't really seeing is there's a real split between BLM, the national organization, and sort of the people who are kind of driving the overall narrative, people that are going on the news, to talk about what is BLM versus local groups in a lot of major cities.
Yeah, we discussed this last week as well.
I think we did. Yeah. So
Yeah.
just talk, and what's happened because of that is, so you have that $27 million that just goes to some organization, whereas like the local groups, no one really hears about. Like,
correct. One of the founders just went and bought, a couple houses, like 4 or 5 houses, $1 million each. She's resigned from the organization now. She got paid, man. She got paid. And as you said, none of that actually went back to the organ. In fact, another one of the founders, he recently resigned as well. When he read their kind of manifesto and stuff like that, and he saw how, they're against capitalism, the destruction of the nuclear family, amongst many of the other rhetorics that they said, he was diametrically opposed to that, because one of the biggest issues in the Black community, of course, is fatherlessness. And he denounced it. He was one of the founding members, I don't know, in Minneapolis or something like that. He denounced it, and now he's working with some kind of pro-life organization that's really trying to help like Black communities and like bring people together.
Yeah.
So it's been a massive grift. They made a ton of money.
When you look at it, because there was I think there were some activists within the organization said like we're trained Marxists. There were some other ones that were even, and even when you look at like. So you look at like, police brutality, you look at like the abuse of power that can happen in some of these areas, or just the policy changes. You look at like, oh, okay, cool. So what are some real ways you can like, actually address the problems? Okay, so you want to keep cops accountable. You want to make sure, sort of like the drug war, like stuff like that really contribute to just the power to abuse and hurt people and mess with people's lives. Okay, cool. What are some solutions? So eliminating qualified immunity, that kind of just keeps cops accountable individually. When you want to end the drug war, well, that just eliminates a whole bunch of people getting arrested for doing what they want.
Non-violent crimes, yeah.
Yeah, non-violent crimes. They're not hurting anyone. Some will even say it was a contributing factor, not the main factor, but a contributing factor to why. During the investigation of George Floyd, one of the things was when he knew the cops were coming, it's believed he ingested all the drugs he had on him.
Yeah, that's pretty much been confirmed. And they found in the testimony, they found the uneaten drugs on the floor with his teeth marks in it.
Yeah. So the thing that the people have kind of brought up is, well, granted, it's not the whole story, but if we don't have this whole culture and just the laws and the policies of police surrounding drugs, he wouldn't have had to worry about that and put him in such a precarious situation. Now, granted, he still made a decision. I'm not arguing against that. It's just, but how many times, it's actually very common where you have individuals that will have a bunch of drugs on them and they'll freak out. Either they'll throw it away, which is probably better. Most likely it's a lot better, or they just ingest all of it.
Yeah, we discussed this as that's a very common practice, and the police know that, and it was brought up in the trial as well.
Yeah,
I agree.
But you bring up all these things, you bring up all these solutions, and those were maybe in the beginnings, but the BLM bigger organization doesn't address any of that. It's really just the local groups that will even come close to talking about that. And then some of them will actually, there's actually some cities that are getting more proactive policies to keep cops accountable, or to also just kind of starting to look into how to properly address the issue, or even just removing stupid drug laws. That's a big thing too.
I mean, that's happening by referendum very slowly. Hopefully that will continue. I'm completely on board with that. I mean, even recently the whole Ashley Babbitt, who was shot January 6th at the Capitol, her family is now seeking to get the information and hold the officer responsible for her death accountable.
Yeah.
But you see, the Capitol Police do not really fall under FOIA, and they don't really fall under that jurisdiction. I think they're Department of Defense. So it's a little more tricky. I don't know the details, but it's not like a normal police institution. So there's a whole thing that's going on with that. But I think they're using the DC police as kind of a proxy to look into that information. And they're suing the whole thing. So yeah, both sides should be concerned with that. The Republicans and the Democrats should be concerned with holding police accountable. And for the most part, I think a lot of them are. I mean, yeah, they're always the fringe. There's always going to be, missteps. People are going to miscalculate. The problem is the mob justice. The problem is that is a bigger concern, because that means there's no longer a rule of law. You're seeing the alternative, which is who has the biggest stick. That is where, if cops and so forth are not getting a fair trial, the system is rigged politically and otherwise.
Yeah.
Then you get a breakdown of society, because the police are not going to police. So it is a delicate balance that has to be taken care of.
It's like we talked about, like, what was it? It could have gone either way with Derek Chauvin. It was like either sequester the jury to keep them like objective, which led to like then they didn't sequester them. So then people were thinking, did they not sequester them in order to force one type of justice, or did they not sequester them so that they could have a case to make for an appeal? It was like,
I mean, the whole fact that the court case took place, I think, very close by to where. So normally when there's a case like this, they move it to a different jurisdiction where people are not as emotionally connected to it. But they didn't do any of that. So yeah, we don't know if the judge did that intentionally or not. The rhetoric that came out was not great. The city settled with the family, almost admitting guilt before the trial even started. There's a lot that went wrong with that. And it looks like Kyle Rittenhouse is next on the chopping block. They're coming after him heavy, and the Justice Department is looking to crack down on him as well.
Yeah, because I've looked at that a few times too, and the people that I know that are watching this, and it's like, how is he not in any position to defend himself? I mean,
how is it not self-defense? He's running. He's literally running away from the incident.
And people want to bring up, well, he didn't go there to like with the intention. I'm like, okay, I mean, but that's still separate. Hypothetically, even if Kyle Rittenhouse was not going to this area with the best of intentions, he still has every right to protect himself. It's like saying, correct, if I went to a party not to have a party, but then someone handed me a drink and then a cop arrested me saying, you're part of this party. It's like, well, no, I was just, what? Like,
not a great example, but okay.
Well, but like, it's like,
yeah, it's like,
the conditions surrounding how he got there are separate from what actually happened.
Correct. Is unimportant to the incident at hand, right? It's just like was it David Dorn, right? He was a policeman. Yeah, he was a black man. He was killed by Antifa BLM riots in Minneapolis. He went out to check on a friend's store, and he was killed. Ex-policeman, big in the community. He used to work in the store, actually. Mm-hmm. So the reasons of him going out there, of course, was to protect the store, right? So, and he died. They shot him. And the left is trying to say, well, he shouldn't have been there. No, it doesn't matter whether he's been there. He's allowed to be there, and they're trying to say he was fodder. If he wasn't there, it wouldn't have happened. No, no. He had every right to be there. The attack that was taking place on him is completely separate to his motives of being there. Andy Ngo is going through that right now, actually. He was just beat up by Antifa in Portland. And everybody, like the internet right now, even like Tim Pool and stuff, are kind of like, well, he was stupid to go in, they're trying to kill him, whatever. But then there's the other side of it. No, he has every right to be there. They are in the wrong for attacking him.
Yeah. Like if you go to... If you're someone that goes to like a riot and you get hurt, well, some people be like, well, you knew you probably would have gotten hurt. But at the same time, if you get hurt and you were able to identify those who hurt you, they still did something wrong.
It's still assault. It's still a crime.
Yeah.
Whatever your motives for being there or not.
It's kind of like, because this is a bit controversial, but it kind of flies in the face of a lot of like leftists and just, I think, so the logic that gets thrown around a lot is, okay, so if you're in a dangerous area, and you decide to just go outside and just do whatever you want. You don't have any way of protecting yourself. You're not being very, aware of your situation.
Mhm.
The left and some other people will try to use this, and they'll talk about like for like very bad things that can happen. We'll just say to women,
Right.
and they'll say, well, and then so they'll kind of try to shoot down like any narrative that's like, well, she shouldn't have been doing that, or she shouldn't have been wearing that. We'll just say there's a lot of that gets thrown around. I'm not trying to justify any of that, but this will happen, and I'll say, yeah, you could say all that, but still, like, she still got hurt.
Correct.
She still got abused. Like, this all happened, so it's still wrong. I said, totally agree with that. Yep, totally shouldn't. Yes, you can try to like say, well, the way it was, the situation. No, but crime was still committed.
Absolutely.
So they'll totally defend that, which makes sense. But then they'll turn around and like, well, this guy should have been here. Well, he was asking for trouble.
The left believes in original sin, right? So it's all about, you never isolate an incident in its proximity and just look at that. They always try to tie it back to some other triggering cause. And that could go all the way back to the Garden of Eden and Adam or some shit like that. Like that's who's ultimately responsible. So they don't understand that concept that no, these are different aspects to it. He has every right to defend himself and be there. And his friend asked Rittenhouse, he was invited to defend this, I think it was a car park. And, when you look at the video footage and stuff like that, he's trying to help. There's video of him trying to put out fires and do all these different types of things. And the incident where people got shot, you can see he's trying to leave the scene and they're attacking him, including one with a skateboard, I think, that was going for his head. And that's the guy who got his bicep shot off. So the left has no concept of isolating incidents like this is the act of assault. It happens at this point.
Yeah.
They just see the fact that you were there, you're guilty. And he's a white male, even more guilty. With a gun? Oh, fucking hell, man. It's the end of the world.
He's right wing, all this stuff. It's
they put all of this other irrelevant ad hominem garbage to try and win their argument, which is why they keep losing and they don't want to argue.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely that's anyways.
Well, speaking of your favorite socialist, did you hear what happened with AOC and her abuela? Is that how you pronounce it? Abuela?
Abuela. So abuela meaning is basically like grandmother. In Spanish.
What is it in Chinese? Is there like a cute phrase in Chinese?
Depends on who you're talking about.
Give me the cute one. What's like the endearing?
No. Specific relation. Are you talking maternal or paternal grandmother?
Oh God, just give me a word, Amos. We don't have to get that specific.
But it is that specific in Chinese.
We're gonna spend 5 minutes on a Chinese lesson in the middle of the podcast.
If it's your paternal grandmother, it is nai nai. If it's your maternal grandmother,
that's the cute one. Oh, that's cute too. Okay, cool.
See, it's different.
Could have just given me one, bro. I wouldn't have asked. It wouldn't have mattered.
We just say grandma, and it's like,
you say nan. Yeah. The English say nan, which is kind of weird, but okay.
But that's the thing. It's like you can't like in Chinese. There's literally like, there's like cousins on the maternal side, cousins on the paternal side. But then is it an older cousin or a younger cousin? Is it a boy or girl? Like it's not just cousin.
Right. Sounds very complicated. Sounds like some communist propaganda to me.
Oh yeah, really, individualizing like the specific parts of the family is really communist.
It smells communist to me.
Yes, a sophisticated language.
Yeah, it is brilliant though. It is a beautiful language.
Abuela,
yes.
So she posted some stuff about her, like, she's doing her whole thing, trying to like push a narrative, and she's like, my abuela like lives in this place, and I don't know if it was something about like Trump. This is all Trump's fault or something. Yeah,
like it was the hurricane has devastated the island, and I think back in 2018 in Puerto Rico. Yeah, and this is a while ago. This hurricane, and she's saying that the relief hasn't come yet, and it's Trump's fault because he blocked the relief to Puerto Rico, which wasn't the case. It found out that the governor of Puerto Rico was diverting the funds and the resources somewhere else because they hated Trump. But anyway,
and
that's
they
another
had
story.
whole warehouses full of bottled water.
Of bottled water and shit, right? So anyway, different story.
So so they so she talks about all this and she posts this, and people start kind of going, wait, don't you make money?
Don't you live in like a penthouse suite in Washington D.C. with an infinity pool?
Well, she lives
and drive a Tesla.
I don't even something like that. I know.
I know she does. She does.
I know the Tesla thing for sure. But so like if you're because if you're in D.C. and you're a congressman, you're living pretty nicely. So not to mention, of course, all of the lobbying money that you might get.
Correct.
Yeah, like I mean, you're almost like an athlete where you're getting quote unquote branding deals, if you want to call it. You get money.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking fees, all that stuff. So people start calling her out, and she didn't really do much. So what was it? Matt Walsh, who works with Daily Wire with like
Daily Wire,
them, puts out set up like a GoFundMe or something for her.
Yes.
And I think they raised like a shit ton of money for her.
$104,000 before it was shut down.
Oh, shut down. Oh,
yeah. Yeah. Well,
so
I think that's a recent development, but yes.
So it goes up and everything, and big old moment. People are like donating, and I think actually they went past the goal.
Yeah, they did. Originally, it was 50,000. They got there in the first 3 hours or 3 days, one of the two. I think it was the first 3 hours.
So
and then it as I say, went in excess, and at the time of closing it down, it was $104,000 US dollars.
So I gotta find the exact article. So news starts popping up. So the Independent puts out an article. Right-wing blogger launches GoFundMe for AOC's Puerto Rico grandmother in latest personal attack.
Yes. Well, the left-leaning, that was the funniest thing, is watching the left-wing media try to paint this like it's nefarious. Like this is just trying to own the libs kind of thing. When the man is literally, he's a Christian. He's literally trying to help, right?
You could try to look at this own the libs moment, but
no, I don't think
not really.
Regular people. Yeah, it's not. It's but they tried to spin it that way. And what I loved about the whole thing, it's all the conservative personalities that gave money. So $4.99 is basically the price of a Tesla installment. So everybody started giving $4.99 to it. It started with Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, Dan Bongino, Crowder, all roaming millennial, all of the conservatives are coming out to help this woman, right? And Matt Walsh, when they, as I said, made a pretty sizable thing, he reaches out to her, to AOC, and be like, hey, look at all the money we raised. We want to make sure this gets to your abuela. Send me a DM and let's coordinate to make sure she gets the money. And at that point, obviously, she went screaming and crying and holding her breath until she goes blue, back to the types of, I guess, GoFundMe, their health and safety, wing of propaganda, and they shut down the entire thing. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's.
It could have been such a good moment. It could have actually been a moment of unity where she said,
"Oh, it was kind of like when Ben Shapiro said, "Hey, AOC, if you was it a debate that he challenged her to?"
I think probably.
Yeah, if you debate me, I will donate $10,000 to a charity of your choice.
A charity of your choice. Yeah.
And remember, she turned it around stop catcalling me.
Yeah. She has to play the victim. And that's what she did. She could have taken this thing, and she put out a tweet about when her showed the pictures that yes, it's Trump's fault, hurricane relief and stuff, and this is what it's like to live in an American colony, and just all this rhetoric, right? All these talking noises. Matt Walsh does this, proving a point of conservatism. And I give it to the conservatives for this. You're relying on government. She'll have no problem taxing these people to get money for her programs.
Yeah.
But she's not gonna take their money because it's free voluntary charity. And she could have taken that moment and done something, politically feasible and say, okay, well, we're gonna fix up the shelter, and at the same time, we're gonna help people in the community in that area. They could have changed the GoFundMe thing, basically allowing it to get to the people of Puerto Rico. But she didn't. She chose the petty, lowball, just selfish route and just shut it down to basically say, I don't want to work with you. I'm not, I can't take your money. I don't want the money from you guys. Yeah. And it just exposes, she is so establishment at this point. It's all about, I can't really help my grandmother because I can no longer use her to make the points that I want to make.
Yeah, hell, if she this is I think was, I don't know if this despicable might be the right word. Using your own family.
Yes, for political gain.
Politicians, and I hear it all the time, both sides do it. They always use
of course,
names. They're like John Simpson in, whatever state, whatever place. They'll name names
mm-hmm.
I've heard Trump do it. I've heard Biden do it. I've heard
You've heard Biden name names? Wow, that's more than I've heard.
Well, yeah. When he's a teleprompter, but you've heard politicians will talk when they're pushing.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, they'll just Dave
the plumber and these guys.
Yeah. They'll do this, and then it's their way of proving a point. These people care about what I have to do. It's cool, and then here comes AOC, my abuela, and they're like, oh, cool, we'll help out, and then she's like, no, hold on, you can't help.
Correct. And she spun it around to make herself the victim. She is being trolled and attacked, and that's how the media's framed it.
Could you imagine if one, at some point, let's say someone tried this with another family member, and then some 4chan or Reddit level autism kicks in, and they find out where they live and decide to send ton of food or checks for money or something.
Yeah.
And then they kind of go, look at all these attacks,
It's we've been doxxed, we're the victim of a
this is a biological attack. It's a biological attack because all the food sat out and went bad or something like that.
No. That is exactly what's going on. There's this fabulous movie that came out in the late 90s called PCU, which was Politically Correct University. And it's a funny movie. It's really funny. In fact, now that I'm thinking about it, I should probably go and rewatch it. But there's a scene at the end where all the different groups, the greenies, the Nazi feminists, the pot smokers, the druggies, just the rock band, everybody's at this massive raving party. And the feminist, with all of her ideology, a guy comes up to her and he's like, hey, I think you look really nice. And she's like, I don't want to see your penis. And she's like seeing everything through the feminist lens. Yeah. And then it gets to the point where her friend, who's also in the kind of the sorority and stuff, the guy brings drinks for the two of them. And she's like, so if you're nice to them, they bring you drinks? She's so out of touch with what's really, she can't see beyond her ideology.
Right.
And that's exactly what the Democrats are doing. Well, both sides do it. I think more so on the left now. It's more important to get a win and not give them a win. And it doesn't serve anybody to do that.
So speaking of getting a win, we'll just wanted to quickly touch on this. So I've told you a little bit about this app that's come out lately called Clubhouse.
Yes.
And I don't know, it's weird. So Clubhouse is a new app that came out. I heard about it when what's his name? Tim Dillon? Tim Dillon. One of Joe Rogan's comedian friends who does a podcast. He came on and he started talking about it and how what's interesting is, so Clubhouse is an app. It was by invite only, so you had to invite people to come on. I think I tried to join, and nice enough, it says on my profile, Spike Cohen got me on the app.
Cool.
So it says nominated by Spike. So what they do is people who are already on there nominate you, and then Clubhouse allows you to join. So you get on there, and it's kind of like Discord, but more open ended. It's funny. Discord actually created a function that is mirroring Clubhouse because Clubhouse is getting all this popularity now. Like they're trying to stay ahead of that competition. It's basically the way you can join rooms and just listen in. You don't actually have to talk. And you can listen to it's like imagining like a virtual like lecture hall of just multiple lecture halls. You can go in, have conversations, have debates. You can leave, go to other rooms, listen in and stuff. Instead of like Discord where you have to like be invited to join a server to do, because Discord was mainly for like gaming and like communities, whereas this was like open forum. It's an open forum to multiple rooms. So a lot of the people in the Libertarian Party have been doing this, and we've been setting up events. Like there was one where we had Nick Gillespie from Reason Magazine, and then Spike Cohen and some other people were talking about like some issues and stuff. There was one where there was Dave Smith, who's kind of like the big, what we call celebritarian, I guess.
Right.
He's a comedian friend of Joe Rogan. He went on and talked about some stuff. But yeah, or we just go in there and we talk about anything. But it's very open-ended. It's very conversational. You're talking to a lot of people. And you get to see like the whole spectrum of people, good and bad. You get some nights where it's just a bunch of people bullshitting, having fun. And he had this one where we were starting off like talking about, we had this like old school kind of conservative came on and had this whole conversation. And there was a guy who was in there too. We were talking. At first it was just a nice little debate, but then it turned into like, no, got to get a win.
Okay.
And the whole conversation just kind of starts skewing towards like, because you get people in there, like you get all sorts of people. So you get people who with like these big egos that go in there and they're like, they just want to talk. Right. Like I'm doing right now. And it just becomes this whole thing. It was just, sorry, I was reminded of that. I thought I might as well mention the app because I think it's really cool. It's opened up like I could go on here. Let's see if I open it up and it's just they have like a landing page of sorts of screen. Mm-hmm. And so there's like a tech news group, tech news from around the world, Apple keynote live stream, marketing mastermind. But here's what's funny, because I have some connections with some of our Christian friends. Yeah. Prophetic intercession room. There was another one that's been really popular. I keep seeing Palestinians and Israelis discussion. Cool. Or there's one where you just literally sit in and listen to music that people will like perform in the room. Cool. So anyways, I saw a lot of this. There's been some like high profile individuals on here. I think you can like find a lot of them. It's a cool app if anyone wants to check it out. I don't know if I can invite people because it needs people's phone numbers. Right. So I'm not going to just. You're not going to. So suddenly we get spammed in the comments by a bunch of phone numbers. Yeah. So yeah, cool thing. What else were we going to touch on? I think there was. Yeah, you wanted to touch on the new royal baby. I mean, if you must. I mean, where Harry and Meghan got to play the victim for 6 hours while she pushed out Lilibet, which what? The child's name is Lilibet. Lilibet Diana, whatever, Windsor. As in the pet name that Prince Philip had for his wife, Elizabeth, our queen, Lilibet. They named their child that. Ooh. Yeah, it's kind of is that a bit scandalous? That's a little. And then Diana, of course, is Princess Diana. That's his mom, right? So, it's not going over well. I'm thinking of Lilliput, the Gulliver's Travels. Oh right, okay, yes, I remember that now.
Yeah, no, this is a pet name for the queen that she had, kind of endearing from her husband. It's kind of weird. just to be honest, it's kind of, that's personal. And I mean, I'm going to try and give them the benefit of the doubt. Of course, we want the best for the child, and
this entire marriage,
right? Which
one
probably
big benefit of a doubt.
yeah, it's probably not going to last much longer, if I'm honest. But hey, we never
Can
wish
a divorce happen in the?
Oh yeah. They divorce.
It's a whole scandal, though, isn't it?
Normally they just kind of keep him as a mistress. But it can happen for him because he's not in line with the throne. I don't think anybody really cares. And the way he's shit on the queen, the royal family, England, I don't think anybody gives a shit.
Yeah.
But she got to play the victim, 6 hours of labor. So she got to bemoan that, I suppose. She could talk about it on her Netflix special and probably go on Oprah and sell a book or something.
Oh my God.
But yeah. I think the name is weird.
Yeah. I'm surprised we went through so many damn topics.
I've got tons. I haven't even scratched the surface on mine. So did you hear that okay, we'll touch on. Did you listen to Trump's speech in North Carolina?
No,
you didn't. All right.
I did not.
This is the former president of the United States. Nobody covered it except Right Side News or one of these very small conservative channels. Shit video, shit audio. But if anybody were to actually support it, they will just be lynched by the government machine.
You'd think CNN and these guys would want to just bring him back on just to have some ratings to complain.
They can't. They've basically made him Satan, so they can't have anything to do with him. He's radioactive. Do you want to know how many people were watching the live stream even before he got to the podium?
I'm guessing 100,000.
Or 185,000 people.
Jeez.
Do you remember last week when I said how many people watched Joe Biden's memorial speech? 7,300.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
What was the speech about?
Well, it's his usual talking points. It wasn't anything groundbreaking. He talked about the need for borders, the need for election integrity. He praised a couple candidates. His daughter, Laura Trump, was supposed to run in North Carolina. It was kind of rumored that she'd run for the Senate.
Yeah.
I think she was born there. She has great ties. Her daughter's called Carolina. She just loves the state, but she's not going to run. And whoever, it's a gentleman that's going to run instead. Basically he and Trump endorsed him and all this different types of stuff. It's all the talking points, nothing groundbreaking, except the video that came after the speech, which is about 45 seconds, very, very small. And he basically comes out and he thanks everybody for, attending and listening. And he, does a little, pep rally, like, we're going to take back the House, we're going to take back the Senate, we're going to take back the White House. And then he throws this caveat in that is basically making the liberals' heads explodes, where he basically says it's all going to happen a lot sooner than you might think. And he ends it right there. So there's now rumors circulating that 2022, Trump might actually run for the House and might go for the speaker position.
Holy shit.
I don't know. There's nothing to substantiate that. There's nothing to substantiate that. This is just talking heads.
So this is an interesting point to make. So
yeah, Mictobus, I'll touch on the audit in a minute.
I actually have a little something to add to that, actually, because I got to talk to someone from the Libertarian Party of Arizona
that's actually involved in the audit. Yeah, the Libertarian parties.
Not necessarily. That's the thing. That's the point I was going to throw in.
Oh, okay.
So anyways,
there is a guy, he came out from the Libertarian Party saying he supported it.
Yeah, he's supporting it, but in terms of involvement, it's very. It's
it's kind of hands off. It's being run. They
literally just go there and they're just like, okay, they're doing it. Like,
yeah, like, it's very hands off. Yeah, sure.
So, anyways, because this could be, So 2022 could be so the House is 2-year terms, and it would seem, I mean, just because of just standard patterns of how the House tends to shift in a midterm election, it's going to most likely shift Republican.
Yes. Everything seems to point that way.
So it does that, and let's just say hypothetically, so that you have this, in the case of a Trump House, a Speaker of the House, now you're third in line
to the president.
Yeah. Biden,
interesting
the possibility of a Biden resignation, or I'm not saying this would like something.
No, yes. So let's just say impeachment for voter fraud. Just as an example.
Well, I'm saying either resignation, impeachment, or being due to his advanced age,
right?
Untimely passing,
correct,
and then the takeover of Kamala Harris.
Yes, and to which she will appoint a VP as well.
But what would happen? Like, I don't know. Is there any case for what would happen?
They would both have to resign, or they would both have to, unforeseen circumstances, leave office. But impeachment for both of them. I mean, it's a long shot. I'm not saying this is
that's yeah. I mean,
but that's how it's legally can be done. Mixed to your point, we discussed this last week. Like, there's no legal recourse that Trump can get back into the presidency before 2024. They're just constitutionally, it can't happen.
Without risking a lot.
I mean, save an unseen event in the history of the United States, such as a military coup, perhaps, it's very, very unlikely that that's going to happen.
Yeah, for this to be this far along.
That's not that far. I mean, it's half a year.
Well, no. I mean, this far along in terms of the timeline. Typically, like even with back during the beginnings of the country, they didn't the reason there was such a long period between November and January was because of how long it took things to be prepared for that.
Yeah, but y'all had contested elections that went on for months.
No, I know, because people are taking full advantage of the time period.
Yeah,
but the time period was initially established because of how long it took. I mean,
you
had 13 colonies, no cars, no internet.
Yeah,
communication was by. Well, I mean, yeah, communication.
Hear ye.
Communication was purely manual and analog.
Yeah, sure.
Lowest degree. So nowadays, with how fast things can move along, like now, at this point, trying to do anything, it's like fucking years compared to back then.
I would agree. There are a couple interesting caveats that may come out of this situation. As for Trump getting in, it would have to be a treasonous charge on Biden, Kamala, and Pelosi. You would need treason for that to happen for Trump to get back in, and they would need extenuating evidence to basically make that claim. They may have it. I don't know what's going on in the background. I think it's very, very, very unlikely. But what might end up happening? So the audit that's taking place in Arizona is just the presidential race. The Senate has put in to do the audit a second time for both the Congress and the Senate. So they want to look at everything. But what's also come out of this is now that there's a domino effect that's taking place where Georgia is about to do an audit and Pennsylvania is about to do an audit.
Yeah.
Copying the exact same system that they have going on in Arizona.
Right.
Now that's not going to change the outcome, but it could change the House and the Senate, because that actually can flip. And there has been precedent of that happening in the past. So that is something we could look forward to, if any shenanigans, because of course this was the most secure election in the history of the world.
A pre-midterm election congressional flip.
It has happened, apparently.
How would then what would you do? What would happen in the midterm then? Hypothetically, if
I get 6 more months, I don't know.
No, but hypothetically, again, this is just an exercise.
Yeah,
of just
fair enough.
thinking.
Nobody knows what could
So
happen.
you flip the Congress to be more Republican, then you come to the midterm and it somehow becomes even more Republican. Do you get like a Republican supermajority?
You could
in both chambers.
I mean, it's obviously possible. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but
oh man,
because there are a lot of Rhino Republicans that they want to get out, right? So a lot of them are going to be primaried. I think of the 11 that kind of, crossed the Rubicon against Trump, I think 10 of them have been basically shot down. Even Governor Kemp in Georgia, I think he's just been censured by the Republican Party because he's dragging his feet on the audit. Yeah. But it could get interesting. It could get very interesting. I think we got about a week again for the hand count of what's going on in Arizona.
Yep.
There's nothing but rumor that's really come out from that.
Arizona is Maricopa County. That's the big one.
They're only doing Maricopa County, which is the biggest.
So I got to, again, on this Clubhouse app, I got to speak with one of the people from the executive committee of the Libertarian Party of Maricopa County.
Good.
And they said, like, yep, we've got a guy there. He's giving like daily updates on what he's seeing when they're doing but we're not actually invested in anything. We don't have anyone there. We know the people, we're watching it, and we're giving updates on it because it is being, because it's happening. So, okay, cool. But there's no, like, they wanted to, like, be clear, like, we're not, like, we're in support, we're watching this, but we're not, like,
yeah, it's the Senate.
They don't have much of an investment in it.
Yeah, they're obviously not in power. So it's the Senate that's driving it forward, which is the Republicans hold the majority.
Right.
But yes, I know they did come out and basically say, yeah, voter integrity is important. We are supporting this. But obviously they're not involved in it in any kind of
the big thing the position with a lot of libertarians that I saw typically was, we believe all elections have some degree of fraud. Sure.
That's a safe statement.
Might as well just look into everything.
I mean, I think there's a certain level of error you expect, like a 1% or like whatever the case might be,
or whatever.
Like, yeah, it's reasonable. But the problem becomes, and that's kind of expected. So if a person wins by a certain majority beyond that, it's kind of like it's uncontested. You can't order a recount, stuff like that. But the problem is all of these states are very razor thin and kind of within those margins. Never mind all the other shenanigans in terms of how many people have voted that, from beyond the grave and all that. It's as I say, there's a portion of the United States population that just does not believe that was a genuine election.
Mm-hmm.
And it appears a lot of people around the world. Kamala Harris just went to Guatemala, and one of the signs she met was Trump won, go home, right? So, I mean, Latin America sees this kind of voter fraud all the time. They recognize.
Speaking of genuine elections,
yes.
Today, I will be listening in on the special session of the Minnesota Libertarian Party Executive Committee is having a special meeting today to address the 2 new vacancies for the at-large positions. I kind of was doing a little prying and like, hey, like this is an official meeting. Technically, members have a right to listen in, right? Yeah. And I'm like, but you're really just dealing with one issue, which is, do I fill the vacancy as well as this other guy? Yeah. I said, so I can listen in, right? Yeah. And they sent me the link.
Cool.
So I'll be listening.
It's not an election though, because technically it's an appointment, but
by default.
You already had the election, but you see, it could flip. You see?
Yeah.
You are what Trump hopes for.
Yeah. I challenge an election and
the
first time in party history.
I know. You're pulling them away from their strippers and blow. Like, we actually got to do shit? Like, hey, Vernon, good to see you, bro. Good to see you. It's spicy. It's very interesting. As I say, the people who are showing up for Biden's events and so forth, nobody's buying it. Nobody is buying, that he is the actual leader of the free world. And nobody's saying that louder than China and Russia. I think China just threatened nuclear war over the investigation of the Wuhan lab. So they're clearly willing to kind of, play chicken with Biden. So yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, I'm fascinated by the audit. The audit is some very good information. And if Pennsylvania does it, because really and truly, he only needs like 2 states to kind of flip the outcome of the whole thing. So if he gets Arizona, and well, it looks like 3 are going to do it. So Arizona, Georgia, and Pennsylvania, that would have huge ramifications throughout the political world and the political class in the UK, in the US. And it was found out that the United Nations, Smartmatic, which does the voting machines, that's Dominion and these guys, Facebook, as well as a couple American delegates, they were talking about election integrity months before the election. And it kind of makes you think, like, why is the United Nations getting involved in like setting the balance for US politics? It's fascinating stuff. It's a lot of information's coming out, man. It's going to be interesting.
I'm telling you, man. If there's some rando guy from Romania that pops up called Nicolae Carpathia, I'm going to be really worried.
I'm not worried. I don't think the EU's got much longer. But anyway,
no. So the UN. You know,
EU. No, he comes out of Europe, so it's like the.
Yeah. So for anyone who's wondering what the hell I just said, I mean it's obviously all a bunch of messy stuff, but back in our I guess what is it, rapture, tribulation days of
end of the world, end times,
end of the world stuff.
Yeah.
It still is. There's a very popular book series called Left Behind. And so it kind of follows a very mainstream idea of the end of the world in terms of Christian theology, which is very circumstantial. It's a lot of messy stuff.
A very modern interpretation of Christian theology.
Yeah, it's end times theology. Anyways, yeah. So they create this character who is supposed to be the Antichrist.
Yes.
And he is supposed to be of like Roman descent of some sort, but they say he's from Romania in the story, and his name is Nicolae Carpathia from the Carpathian Mountains. He just shows up and he's the Antichrist. He has all these like weird abilities. He can no, not Vigo the Carpathian.
Cats and dogs living together. Total anarchy. That's a great line out of Ghostbusters.
No, Nicolae Carpathia is basically the Antichrist. He shows up and essentially becomes Secretary General of the UN at that point, and takes over the world, becomes ruler of the world, creates a one world religion, and all this stuff. It's really like apocalyptic, kind of dark, but at the same time, it's all very. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Kirk Cameron.
I probably did. I can't remember.
And it's so like corny,
cringe.
Yeah, because
the cringe.
Because they try to make him look evil and powerful, but he's just the big the book. Because I read some of the books, and they paint him as a very charismatic, very powerful individual. Like you cannot escape him. In the movie, they just make him like cringe and boring.
Fair enough. I honestly, I don't remember much of those Kirk Cameron movies.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. Kirk Cameron was on Dave Rubin.
Oh, was he? Oh, okay. I'll have to check.
I didn't watch it. I just saw it pop up on my feed. I'm just personally, there's a lot of even political commentary I'm not really watching as much, but I'll still see it on my feed.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of the same. I'm politics out for a lot of this stuff. I mean, I prepare for the show, obviously, and I read the Gateway Pundit, like every fringe outlet I could find. Alex Jones.
We got to really spice it up.
there was a great series on the Lotus Eaters, which is Sargon of Akkad's podcast, where they went through all the stuff that Alex Jones got right. So that was an interesting one. But I mean, did you want to hit on Bitcoin Anonymous and Elon Musk?
So people kind of been following, Elon Musk was pushing Dogecoin. He was talking about Bitcoin. I mean, Tesla even bought up $1 billion worth of Bitcoin or some shit. Just insane. Because they wanted to accept Bitcoin at all of their their locations. They did that for like what, maybe a couple weeks.
Yeah. I don't even think it made a month. I'm not sure, but
and then he came out and started saying, "Well, I've been speaking with some crypto people and speaking with some companies, and I don't think Bitcoin is the most eco-friendly thing."
Mm-hmm.
So after he said that, he said, "We will hold on to our Bitcoin assets, but we will not be using it
Right
until this issue is addressed." So he wanted, like, his Bitcoin mining, a lot of these like miners, farms, if you want to call them, have a massive amount of power consumption. So he thinks like this is, and he claimed, he looked into it and it's not very green because electricity tends to be, gas, coal, all this stuff. Whereas I've seen plenty of like crypto like mining setups run by those giant windmills you see in farms. Like,
right, okay.
I've seen them work. I'm not saying like, then it's fine. I'm
like giant mining operations run by windmills.
Yeah.
Or just mining operations run by windmills.
So it was basically like 2 or 3 shipping containers sized. Like, so I think it was like a couple hundred miners, like those devoted things plugged in, and they got fans and stuff. And then it's those large size fans windmills you see out in like farming areas. So it's one running like a decent sized operation. I think the operation was profiting $20,000-$30,000 a month.
Okay, they erected that windmill, or that was pre-existing?
I think it was pre-existing, and then they're leasing it in some way.
Okay,
but it's direct. The power is direct to the setup.
Okay, that's very unusual because that's not a very reliable way, because of course the wind doesn't blow all the time. But okay,
I mean, there's probably some sort of like grid connection, but it is like, if you want to talk, green, greener,
well, not really. If you really want to discuss it, wind power is like the worst thing, for the environment and the disposal.
From what I've seen on a small scale, it's better, not on like a grid level scale, because when you have it on a level of multiple houses, an entire grid, the problem of not having consistent power becomes a intermittency. Whereas I've seen people pull off like having a windmill in their backyard, and
it normally charges a couple batteries, and they'll get like a good supply.
Right. So if you get like the Tesla battery plus a windmill,
but you can't run a mining rig off that. That's
no, obviously not. No, so they probably have some. They didn't.
They got to have a connection to the grid at some way. They probably want to look green, but windmills don't actually.
Anyways, so he talks about wanting to be more green, and
which is a lot of shit, because all of his electric cars basically pull the same fucking energy that he's knocking the Bitcoin people.
People are fucking, any Tesla charging station is just connected to the grid.
Exactly.
Anywhere. So anyways, so he does this whole thing. Crypto cuts in half. Bitcoin cuts in half in value overnight. Yes. And people start looting, and not just Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is connected to pretty much every other crypto in the world.
All cryptos tend to follow in line.
Fucked. So this has been happening for a few weeks, and Anonymous came up and was like, called him out, and released in a statement that said, "You think you can just do whatever you want? You can just, how much power you have, and you're abusing that power to, yes, anyone who's in crypto understands the risk, but you're just straight up playing games with the market." Like, just called them out and said, we're, I don't know, I forgot exactly what the demand was, we'll just say.
Well, they didn't have a demand. They called him out for that. They pointed out the fraud of Tesla. They pointed out that he makes all his money from government subsidies. They pointed out the fact that I've been saying for years, nobody believes, he didn't found Tesla. It was Martin Eberhard and this other gentleman.
Right.
So they were very, very, succinct about all of that. They didn't really make a demand. They just kind of said, we're coming for you, because people, the little guy was banking on Bitcoin and Dogecoin, and, it was really there to change people's lives. and by kind of playing it as a joke, you kind of ruined a couple people's lives.
Yeah.
And they just kind of said, well, look out for us, we're Legion, we're anonymous, we'll coming after you.
All that stuff. So
yeah, all that good stuff. The problem is
Yeah.
we don't actually know if Anonymous has actually sent this, because
it's tough.
It's hard to, because it's it's not like an organization, right? But did you see it on YouTube? Or
I saw it on
BitChute?
Twitter.
Okay, well, the Twitter account doesn't have like a lot of following. It's not like the official place you get the like anonymous news. It's like a subgroup, and even the YouTube channel is not the official one. And it only has like 100,000 subscribers or something.
It seems in line with their overall behavior, like they would do something like this.
I'm not disputing that.
But you never know if some of these videos get made and put out, and then the actual anonymous just kind of goes in line with that.
Yeah, that's the problem. I think like 2 of the contacts for Anonymous have kind of said, no, this isn't us. And then 1 kind of said, yeah, this is us. So it's very obviously
because it is a decentralized group too. They're not
correct.
Like, it's a very loosely knit group in very secret areas. Kind of like some of them will work with each other, some of them won't. Some of them have different agendas than others.
Yes.
I mean, I've met some people who claimed that they were part of it, and I was like, I mean, they had the skills, and I was like, okay, cool, but really? Would you really tell me that?
It's like if I was in the club, would I tell you? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like the Masons.
Masons are more public.
Yeah, that's very boring.
So, what was it? Oh, you were talking about being politicked out, and I was almost going to transition into our big topic.
Big topic.
Announcement, I guess.
Big bada boom.
Big. Well, we've talked about it a few times with our listeners and told people, about the impending date, I guess.
Yes.
We've been talking about how we've been doing this. So July of 2017, we started doing the show.
Yes.
It was the Amos and Joseph live stream, and then we Shitler Preachers, and now 10K Rum. And anyone who can kind of look at the numbers and see, the views, like we get decent engagement, we get views, but it just didn't quite take off.
Yes, we're not in the top 100 podcasts in the world anywhere, which is heartbreaking.
Yeah. So seeing, how things were, we kind of made a decision last year, like, okay, summer of 2021, if we don't see anything major, we're just not going to continue, or at least we wouldn't have any sort of regular schedule. We might do something, but we might not. Like, we're not going to be sort of stuck to a schedule or any sort of consistency. It's just where we are. Plus, really, I mean, we had this conversation too. Political commentary and podcasts, I've kind of plateaued in general.
Well,
and they've
the podcasting side is kind of picking up, but the YouTube algorithm doesn't help us. The Facebook algorithm doesn't help us. So we're probably on some blacklist somewhere, especially the topics we discuss, which are all controversial. We're not there. There's literally nowhere to go, apart from organic growth and what our loyal listeners and fans have, shared out, which we appreciate.
Yeah. So, and I will just fully take my, I guess, responsibility for what I'm feeling and just what Brooke and I are good friends. We have never, and I'm not saying this to cover my ass. I'm saying it's just that's how I felt. Like, people kind of go like, we're not fighting, guys. No, we're really not having.
No, we're not.
We're not.
No beef.
We're literally not. It's literally, I wake up, and I think about doing the show, and I'm like, it's not that I don't care about the issues. It's not that I don't care about the people that listen, but it's just putting in all that and having the sort of, it seems like I have to kind of force myself to do it. Like I like when I'm doing it, it feels so natural because it's a habit at this point. It's so,
Yes.
but then like the before and the after, and then just everything that comes with it, I'm like, it's not. It doesn't really like. I don't feel as passionate about it as I used to. Now, granted, I'm doing things with the Libertarian Party, and I'm doing work with that. That is that is drawing a lot of my attention. Now that I'm actually involved in everything, so I pretty much just on the like literally 10 minutes before the show, I talked to Brooke, and we were already deciding on like essentially putting the show on an indefinite pause. Next week, episode 140 will be our last episode for a while, if not forever.
There we go.
I'm going to put a pause. Like what I'm going to do is like our StreamYard subscription. I'm going to stop that. I'm not going to renew our podcasting hosting stuff, which doesn't renew until February of next year. So all the episodes will be up,
Yes.
and they'll be there unless some crazy amount of downloads come through in the next year. I just won't do it.
So you have your work cut out for you guys.
Yeah. If everyone just downloads everything like 10 times, I think we'll get our money's worth. No, I'm just kidding. And just, yeah. So, it just, with everything that happened, it didn't quite take off the way. We had some really great guests.
Oh, we sure did.
I mean, big, small, interesting, fun. Some we still, we've made a lot of like good connections through it. I've made friends through it. It's definitely a good experience. I mean, with all the setup that I have, I can do other projects in the future. I just hop on other streams and shows and meeting different people that way. Make the business bring up some good points, changing the time slot, incorporating some drinking. We had set up the time slot really mainly because Brooke and I, this is kind of like in the middle in terms of time. It's late enough in the morning that I'm there, and then it's midday where he would usually probably, if depending on what you're doing, you're probably done with the majority of the day. Yeah.
So it's almost 7 p.m. here. So it's like 6:40, quarter to 7 here.
Yeah. And it's almost 1 in the afternoon here. So it's kind of in that weird spot. If we were in the same time zone, maybe we could have just done it whenever we wanted. But,
exactly.
Plus a big thing too, like having guests, like having that, it's tough. It's like
subscribers.
Yeah.
Strippers and blow.
Dude, we had some like really honest and open discussions about like, okay, do we want to get women on the show? Do we want to get like a third female host?
Yeah,
are we just start getting more and more female guests in general?
We tried the big breasted women, and for episode 69, and
and they were fully aware of this too.
She came prepared. The bazumbas were out in full display, and it didn't help. We tried that. We tried everything.
It was a fun episode too.
It was a good episode. Yeah. I actually thought about getting a second mic to like actually have more guests. But this shit is expensive, guys.
To be honest, man, you put in more like money into your setup than I did. I went like as economic as possible. But obviously we're still going to be doing stuff. Like I still go on some podcasts. I talk to people. Depending upon what happens with the political stuff, maybe I'll get on political because one of the memes of the Libertarian Party is everyone's got a podcast.
It's a running joke, especially since the pandemic. It's kind of like old men are doing is
what's happening. There's a lot of like people that I know that are just hopping on a bunch of podcasts, which is fun,
Sure.
And I'll be. I know I'm with with Masculine Geek. I go on play D&D with them. I know at some point they want me to write some stuff for them. I write stuff for Spike Cohen. I'll be around. Brook is going to be on his channel. You still got that going on. That's going a lot stronger than this channel, I think. So because you have a
good catalog, a back catalog that really helps.
Wholesome enough topics that YouTube is willing to deal with. Like
in the beginning, they're not dealing with it now, but in the beginning, I did the kind of thing that had to be done to grow the channel, and putting out a video almost a couple times a week, 10 minutes long, all that stuff. But I will, so I mean, a lot of things I would do a video about on my channel, I save for the podcast. So a lot of commentary, movie reviews, shows, I save that content, for this show. So this has really been my heart and soul to try and put as much effort into this as possible. We're going to take a break. That's fine. I completely support Amos's decision and I agree with it. I think we've given it a good try. It's 4 years we've been pouring into this for, not that it's about the money, but you kind of, we would have liked to see a little more traction at this point. We wouldn't like to feel like we're still kind of starting off day one.
Heck, I even, it's a good point that was made in another conversation. I think I maybe told you, so I spoke with some family who are accountants.
Yes.
And they talked about if you don't see a profit in 4 years, no, I think it was even less than that. It was like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
If you don't start seeing a profit, drop the business, start another one, do something else.
Correct. I mean, to be fair, it's not that the product isn't good. I think there's a lot of algorithm stuff that's working against us. I think we're both kind of shadow banned.
If it was any other time on YouTube, let's say if we did this 4 years before we started, let's say we started 2012 or something.
We would have been like a Sticks, Hex, and Hammer. We would have been kind of in that echelon.
Yeah.
When you could still grow on YouTube. But I mean, right now it's antagonistic.
Even if it started in 2015.
Possibly. And we were consistent. Yeah, probably. But I mean, for me, I'm going to put my energy back into my own channel. I'm probably going to start some kind of streaming shows and kind of just, talk the shit and stuff like that.
And I might go there.
Yeah, and I'll invite Amos, right? We'll start a new show.
But we're not, it's just with this specific, 10K Rum podcast is essentially will be indefinitely on hold.
From next week. Yeah.
After next. Yeah. So,
so everybody bring a drink, bring a friend, join us next week for the celebration of just shy of 4 years. Cause I think we're off by a couple of days.
It would really just be 3 years, 11 months.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck it. It's 4 years, right? It's our show. We can say what we want. We will do a celebration and maybe recap some of our experiences and share stories with our friends and guests and stuff like that. And we'll close it out on a good note.
Yeah. So, once again, I'm just not even going to really plug. I mean,
no, you gotta plug it, man. You might get that one sale at the end. The guy buys like 1 million soaps, and it's like, oh wow, we could retire. I don't, let's keep doing it until it's done, right? Let's do it until it's done. Yeah.
So, if you, of course, enjoyed the show,
who wouldn't?
Make sure you wash your balls. So check out PassTheSoap.com. Use the coupon code 10KRUM to get 10% off. That supports the show. Or if you want to check out our Subscribe Star for as little as $1 a month, you can support the show there directly at subscribestar.com/shitload-preachers. So do check out those links. They're all below. We do, of course, appreciate everyone joining us today. We will, of course, be on next Monday. We will see everyone next week.
Thanks for watching, guys. See you all next week.